Have you ever watched someone choose a complete stranger over their own child? I have. My own father believed every lie his new wife told him. He stopped trusting me, stopped listening to me, and one day he threw me out of the only home I had ever known. I was only 21 years old. I had nowhere to go. No money, no family, no one waiting for me. For a long time, I believed my life was over, but I was wrong. Years later, the same father who abandoned me stood in front of me with tears in his eyes, unable to believe the woman I had become. He wanted another chance. By then, it was too late. My name is Olivia Bennett, and this is the story of how losing everything became the beginning of my greatest success. I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I was my parents' only child. And although we weren't wealthy, our home was always filled with love. My father, Michael Bennett, worked as a taxi driver. He left home before sunrise and often returned late at night, exhausted after spending the whole day driving across the city. My mother, Sarah Bennett, always welcomed him home with a warm smile and a hot meal. She had a way of making our little house feel like the safest place in the world. Every evening, we ate dinner together, laughed about our day, and talked about our dreams. Looking back now, I realize those ordinary moments became the memories I treasure the most. My mother always told me, "Money comes and goes, Olivia, but a family that truly loves each other is worth more than anything in this world." At the time, I believed nothing could ever break us apart. I couldn't have been more wrong. Everything changed on a rainy Friday evening. My mother wanted us to celebrate because I had received excellent grades at college. She smiled and suggested we go to our favorite restaurant in downtown Dallas. My father agreed immediately. None of us knew that it would be the last dinner we would ever plan together. If I had known what was about to happen that night, I would have hugged my mother a little longer before we left the house. I would have told her one more time how much I loved her, because only a few hours later, my entire world would fall apart. The rain had been falling since the afternoon. As we drove through the streets of Dallas, the roads were wet and traffic was moving slowly. My father kept both hands on the steering wheel while my mother sat beside him, smiling as she talked about all the places she wanted us to visit one day. I was sitting in the back seat, scrolling through my phone and listening to them laugh. If someone had told me those would be the last moments I'd ever spend with my mother, I never would have looked at my phone. I would have looked at her instead. We were only a few minutes away from the restaurant when everything happened. A pickup truck came speeding toward the intersection. The traffic light was red. It never stopped. My father barely had time to react. He slammed on the brakes. The tires screamed across the wet road. Then, crash. The sound of metal twisting filled the air. The windows shattered. Our car spun across the road before crashing into a light pole. For a few seconds, everything went completely silent. I couldn't hear anything except a loud ringing in my ears. My head hurt. My chest felt heavy. I tried to move, but the seatbelt held me in place. When I finally opened my eyes, I saw broken glass everywhere. People were screaming outside. Someone was calling 911. I turned toward the front seat. My father was injured but still conscious. He kept calling my mother's name. "Sarah, Sarah, please answer me." She didn't move. I remember screaming. I kept begging her to wake up. "Mom, please, please don't leave me." Within minutes, ambulances and police officers arrived. The firefighters cut open the car to pull us out. I was taken into one ambulance. My father was taken into another. My mother, she never made it to the hospital alive. The next morning felt unreal. The hospital room was quiet. A doctor walked in with a serious expression. I already knew what he was going to say. "I'm very sorry," he said softly. "We did everything we could." Those words shattered what was left of my heart. my mother was gone. Just like that. The woman who had loved me more than anyone else in the world was never coming back. A few days later, we buried her in a peaceful cemetery outside Dallas. The sky was gray, almost as if the weather itself was mourning with us. Friends, relatives, and neighbors came to pay their respects. I stood beside her coffin, unable to believe this was real. I wanted someone to tell me it was all a terrible nightmare. But no one did. After everyone left, I stayed there for several minutes. I placed a small white rose on her grave. Then I whispered through my tears, "I promise I'll make you proud, Mom." At that moment, I had no idea how difficult that promise would become, because losing my mother wasn't the end of my pain. It was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, my father changed. The cheerful man I had always known disappeared. He barely spoke. He spent most of his time working or sitting alone in silence. I thought grief had simply broken his heart. I believed that, together, we would eventually heal. I had no idea someone else was about to enter our lives and destroy what little family we still had. Life felt empty. The house that had once been filled with laughter became painfully quiet. Every room reminded me of her. Her favorite coffee mug was still in the kitchen. Her books were still on the shelf. Even her sweater still hung by the front door. I couldn't bring myself to move any of it. I missed her every single day. My father buried himself in work. He spent longer hours driving his taxi through the streets of Dallas, trying to escape the loneliness waiting for him at home. I understood his pain. I was hurting too. For a while, it was just the two of us. I honestly believed that no one could ever replace my mother. But only 6 months after her death, everything changed again. One evening, my father came home with a woman standing beside him. She had perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive clothes, and a bright smile. "Olivia," my father said, "this is Jessica Carter." She stepped forward and hugged me before I could even react. "It's so nice to finally meet you," she said warmly. "I've heard wonderful things about you." I smiled politely. She seemed kind. Maybe, I thought, she would help our family heal. I couldn't have been more wrong. Just 3 months later, my father and Jessica got married. The wedding was small. I forced myself to smile because I wanted my father to be happy. If marrying again helped him move forward, I was willing to accept it. At least, that's what I believed back then. The moment Jessica officially became my stepmother, everything changed. The sweet, caring woman disappeared overnight. The first time my father left for work after the wedding, Jessica looked at me with a cold smile. "You should clean the kitchen," she said. I nodded. When I finished, she pointed toward the living room. "Now vacuum the carpets." When I finished that, she found something else. Laundry, bathrooms, windows, the garage. Nothing I did was ever good enough. If I missed one tiny spot of dust, she would criticize me for it. "If you're going to live in this house," she would say, "you need to earn your place." I reminded her that I was my father's daughter. She laughed. Not for long. Those words stayed in my mind. Whenever my father came home, Jessica transformed into a completely different person. She smiled. She praised me. She even hugged me in front of him. It was like watching an actress perform. The second he left again, her smile disappeared. One afternoon, she walked into my room without knocking. She looked around and frowned. "This room is too big for someone like you." I stared at her. "What do you mean?" She folded her arms. "I mean, this house belongs to your father now, and I'm his wife." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "This is my home too," I replied. She stepped closer until she was only inches away. "We'll see how long that lasts." For the first time, I felt genuinely afraid of her. Then the lies began. If a glass broke, Jessica blamed me. If dinner tasted bad, she blamed me. If she misplaced something, she blamed me. Every single problem somehow became my fault. At first, my father defended me. Olivia wouldn't do that, he would say. But Jessica never gave up. Day after day, week after week, she filled his mind with lies. Slowly, I noticed my father changing. He smiled at me less. He questioned everything I said. Sometimes he wouldn't even look at me during dinner. It felt like I was losing him, one lie at a time. I kept telling myself that eventually he would realize the truth. I believed that no father could stop trusting his own daughter forever. I was wrong. Jessica wasn't finished. She was waiting for the perfect opportunity to turn my father completely against me. And when that day came, it destroyed the last piece of the family I had left. A few weeks later, Jessica finally got exactly what she had been waiting for. It was a quiet Saturday morning in Dallas. My father had taken the day off from driving his taxi, so all three of us were at home. I was cleaning the kitchen when I suddenly heard Jessica scream from upstairs. Michael. Her voice echoed through the entire house. My money is gone. I froze. A few seconds later, my father rushed upstairs. I followed them, confused about what was happening. Jessica stood inside her bedroom, holding her purse. Her face was filled with fake panic. There was $500 in here, she cried. Now it's gone. My father looked around the room. Are you sure? I'm positive. Jessica answered immediately. I counted it yesterday. Then, she slowly turned toward me. There was only one person in this house while you were at the grocery store. My heart dropped. She was pointing at me. What? I said in shock. Are you serious? Jessica folded her arms. If I didn't take it, and your father didn't take it, then who else could it be? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't touch your purse. I've never stolen anything in my life. But Jessica kept pretending to cry. I welcomed you into my life, Olivia, she said. And this is how you repay me? I looked at my father. Dad, please tell her you know I would never do something like this. For a moment, he stayed silent. I waited for him to defend me. Instead, he asked, Olivia, did you take the money? Those words hurt more than the accusation itself. He actually believed it was possible. I looked him straight in the eyes. No, I swear on Mom's memory, I didn't take anything. For just a second, I thought he believed me. Then, Jessica spoke again. She's lying. I knew this day would come. I tried so hard to love her, Michael, but she's been disrespecting me for months. Every word was another lie, but my father listened to every single one. Jessica even opened one of my drawers and pulled out an envelope. Inside were the missing $500. I stared at it in complete disbelief. I had never seen that money before. Jessica had planted it there. I knew she had. But I couldn't prove it. My father picked up the envelope with shaking hands. His face turned red with anger. I can't believe you. I started crying. Dad, she put it there. I didn't do this. He slammed the envelope onto the table. Enough. His voice echoed through the house. I trusted you. You've done nothing but create problems since Jessica came into this family. I couldn't breathe. No, that's not true. Please listen to me. Jessica stood behind him with a small smile that only I could see. She had won. She had finally turned my father completely against me. Then, my father said the words that changed my life forever. If you can't respect this family, you don't belong in this house. I stared at him. What? Pack your things. You're leaving. My knees felt weak. I thought he would calm down. I thought he would realize how unfair this was. Instead, he walked to the front door, opened it, and pointed outside. Get out! I begged him through my tears. Dad, please, I'm your daughter. I have nowhere to go. For just a moment, I saw pain in his eyes, but Jessica placed her hand on his shoulder. He looked away. Without another word, he closed the door behind me. The sound of that door shutting felt like my entire world had collapsed. I stood outside with nothing but a small backpack, a few clothes, and a broken heart. That night, I wasn't just homeless. I was completely alone. And I had no idea that being thrown out of my father's house would become the first step toward the life he would one day envy. The night my father threw me out, I walked through the streets of Dallas with tears running down my face. I didn't know where I was going. I just kept walking. Every time I looked at my phone, I hoped my father would call me. I prayed he would realize he had made a mistake. I waited for a message that never came. As the hours passed, the streets became quieter. The city lights reflected on the wet sidewalks after the evening rain. I sat alone on a bench in a small public park, hugging my backpack. For the first time in my life, I had nowhere to call home. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I woke up cold, hungry, and exhausted. I counted the money in my wallet. I only had $83. That wasn't enough to survive for long. I couldn't waste another minute feeling sorry for myself. If no one was coming to save me, I had to save myself. That morning, I walked into one business after another, asking if they were hiring. Everywhere I went, I heard the same answer. "We're sorry, we're not hiring," or "We'll call you if something opens up." But nobody ever called. Days turned into weeks. My savings disappeared. Some nights I skipped dinner just to save money. Other nights I survived on instant noodles and bottled water. I rented the smallest room I could find in an old apartment building. The room was barely big enough for a single bed, a chair, and a tiny table. But at least I had a roof over my head. Every night before going to sleep, I looked at a photo of my mother. "I miss you, Mom," I whispered. "I hope you're proud of me, because I'm trying." Thinking about giving up crossed my mind more than once, but every time it did, I remembered my mother's words. No matter how hard life becomes, never stop believing in yourself. Those words kept me moving forward. One afternoon, after another long day of searching, I noticed a now hiring sign outside a logistics company called Lone Star Logistics. I took a deep breath and walked inside. The receptionist smiled politely. "Can I help you? I'm here to apply for the job." A few minutes later, I was sitting across from the operations manager, David Miller. He looked at my resume and sighed. "You don't have much experience." I nodded honestly. "I know, but I'll work harder than anyone else if you give me a chance." He studied my face for a few seconds. Then he smiled. "I like your attitude. We'll start you on a 3-month probation." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I finally had a chance. I thanked him again and again before leaving the office. When I walked outside, tears filled my eyes. For the first time since losing my home, I felt hope. The job wasn't easy. I arrived before everyone else every morning. I stayed late almost every evening. If someone needed help, I volunteered. If there was extra work, I accepted it without complaining. I wanted to prove that giving me a chance had been the right decision. Some of my coworkers laughed at me. "Why are you working so hard?" one of them asked. "They're not paying you enough for this." I smiled and replied, "I'm not working for today's paycheck. I'm working for tomorrow's opportunities." Little by little, people started noticing my dedication. Mr. Miller trusted me with bigger responsibilities. Within a year, I earned my first promotion. Then another. Then another. The scared young woman who had once been thrown out of her own home was slowly becoming someone stronger, someone confident, someone determined to build the life she deserved. I no longer cried myself to sleep. Instead, I spent my evenings learning new skills, taking online business courses, and preparing for every opportunity that came my way. I had made myself one promise. One day, I would become so successful that no one would ever be able to make me feel worthless again. And years later, that promise would come true in a way I never imagined. Because the next time my father saw me, he wouldn't recognize the woman standing in front of him. 5 years passed. Those 5 years changed me completely. I was no longer the frightened 21-year-old girl who had walked out of her father's house with nothing but a backpack. I was 26 now. Through years of hard work, determination, and countless sacrifices, I had earned the respect of everyone at Lone Star Logistics. Promotion after promotion, I continued proving myself. Eventually, I became the company's senior operations manager. The small apartment I had once struggled to afford was now replaced by a beautiful home in a quiet neighborhood outside Dallas. I bought my first car with my own money. Every achievement reminded me that I had built my life without anyone's help, especially without my father's. Although the pain never completely disappeared, I learned to live with it. I stopped waiting for apologies. I stopped wondering if he missed me. Instead, I focused on becoming someone my mother would have been proud of. One Monday morning, our company was preparing for an important meeting with a new client. The office was busy. Employees hurried through the hallways carrying documents and laptops. I was reviewing reports in my office when my assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Bennett," she said. "Our guests have arrived." I smiled. "Thank you, I'll be there in a minute." I picked up my tablet and walked toward the main lobby. As the elevator doors opened, I saw a familiar yellow taxi parked outside the building. At first, I didn't think much about it. Then the driver stepped out. Time seemed to stop. It was my father, Michael Bennett. His hair had turned gray. His face looked older and more tired than I remembered. The confident man from my childhood was gone. Years of hard work and regret seemed to weigh heavily on his shoulders. He opened the taxi door for his passenger, collected the fare, and turned toward the building. Then his eyes met mine. He froze. For several seconds, neither of us moved. His eyes widened in complete disbelief. He looked at my business suit, my company ID, the employees greeting me with respect. Then he looked back at my face. "Olivia?" he whispered. I nodded slowly. "Hello, Dad." His lips trembled. I can't believe it's really you." He looked around the office lobby as if trying to understand what he was seeing. You work here?" Before I could answer, one of my coworkers walked over. "Good morning, Miss Bennett. The conference room is ready." Another employee smiled. "Congratulations again on last week's performance award." My father watched the conversation in silence. Only then did he realize I wasn't just another employee, I was one of the people leading the company. The daughter he had thrown out with nothing had become someone successful. He looked down at the floor. "I never imagined," he said quietly. I could see the regret written all over his face. For the first time in years, he understood what he had lost. He took a deep breath. "Olivia, I've been looking for you. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I should have listened to you. I should have protected you. Instead, I failed you." Tears filled his eyes. "I've wanted to apologize for years. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm so sorry." I stood there silently. For years, I had imagined this exact moment. I thought hearing those words would erase the pain. It didn't. Because some scars remain, even after the apology finally comes. I looked at my father with calm eyes. Then I quietly said, "There was a time when all I wanted was for you to believe me. You were the only person whose trust mattered. But you chose someone else's lies over your own daughter." His head dropped. He couldn't deny it. "I know," he whispered. "And I'll regret that for the rest of my life." I took a slow breath. I spent years rebuilding my life. I learned how to survive without you. I became stronger because I had no other choice. Then I looked him in the eyes. I don't hate you anymore, but I can never go back to the daughter I was before you closed that door. He began crying. And for the first time, the strongest person in the room wasn't my father. It was me.